Hey everybody, I recently got a new ESC for my Racer 250 and through that experience noticed some of the default settings. When I first received my Racer, I went through the ESC programming, so I never really knew what the defaults were. It's not easy to tell what the current defaults are on your ESCs with SimonK ESCs. All you really know is what you programmed. Through receiving this ESC, or just flying with it as a default, I noticed it didn't have any active braking, which modern flight controllers and flight controller software expects. It's called damped light when it's in BL Heli Suite, but these are not BL Heli firmware ESCs. These are SimonK, is what comes with the Racer by default. And that made it bobble a lot after a roll. I'd also worked with somebody recently and got them to set their control frequency from 8 Hertz to 22 Hertz, and they said it made a big difference in the flight characteristics, and they had wobbling issues that went away. And I experienced the same thing. If I set my control frequency back to 8 kilohertz, my Racer will like wobble. So I want to go through this. I think everybody, is afraid to do SimonK, change the firmware settings because it's not like BL Heli where you can just bring up a screen and change it. You have to go through the beeping sequence. So what I have here is you connect to your Racer 250 with Betaflight or Cleanflight or whatever. So I have the USB cable, I have it connected, I have the props off, and set the master control all the way up to 100%. I do not have a LiPo plugged in right now. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is plug in a LiPo, and these ESCs are going to go into a beeping sequence. I'm going to kind of narrate through this a little bit. There's a lot of beeping because it's all 4 ESCs. If you do get confused, you don't have to do all 4 at one time. You can set the master control to 0 and just do ESC 1 and then go through and get it all set up, and then when you exit, unplug the battery, put ESC 2 up to 100%, plug the battery back in, get that all set up, so on and so forth. And then it's much less confusing because you don't have all 4 beeping, and sometimes they're not in sync. You'll see in a second. But it's not that hard. So let's go ahead and give it a shot. I got all my ESC program the same. Right now I'm just going to kind of reprogram to the same thing, but I'll kind of narrate through this at the same time. So going again, Betaflight master control all the way up. Make sure props are off. Obviously, I have just a 2-cell LiPo here. You can use whatever 2, 3, 4-cell LiPo, whatever supports your Racer supports. Mine supports up to 4, but I use a 2-cell just so the voltage is less because for things heating up, things like that. All right, so master control up, props off. Have my programming guide here, which would be the same for your Racer. Put the default SimonK ESCs. I'm going to go ahead and plug in a battery. That would be if you wanted to calibrate, you'd go right to 0. Now we left it up, you're in programming mode. The first beep was active braking type. That's option 1. Option 2 is 2 beeps. Option 3 is 3 beeps. Go to 100%. Now we're at D2. I'm going to enter that. 0. 8 degrees. 15 degrees. 23 degrees. Now start force. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, option 8, 9, we chose 10. Now we're going to wait for curve mode. Enter that menu. We're going to choose option 1. D5 menu. 8 kilohertz. Now we're going to set to 22 kilohertz. That's D6. We're going to go with option 4. So is option 4. And last but not least, D7 or menu 7. Soft cut, and then we go back down to 0% throttle. And you could hear the ESCs all then go into startup tone. Now, honestly, I could arm it and fly it because the ESCs are started up and programmed, but I'm going to just go ahead and unplug the battery here. Once it does the startup tones, that's kind of like it's saving it. So hopefully you heard those beeps and understood. It's basically, these are the menu options in the programming. You get into them by going to 0 throttle, and then once you get to the appropriate option underneath each D or main menu, you go to full throttle, and then it will pick that one, and then it goes on to the next. So that's how you program your SimonK ESCs. I know it's important to have active braking on for good flight characteristics, and I know you need to have your control frequency set to 22 kilohertz. I am 99% sure the default setup and the ESCs are not that. So when people have wobbles or they don't get good rolls, they have a lot of bounce back and things of that nature. Wobbles, from everything I'm seeing, are because of not having control frequency at 22 kilohertz, and obviously not having active braking on, or what they would call in BL Heli is called damp light. If you wouldn't have that on, that obviously doesn't slow your motors down fast enough for the quad to control it and get good sharp moves and responses after a roll or flip. Thanks, and I hope this helps.